The Arizona Coyotes season has been a tragedy in more ways than one. Obviously, there's all the off-the-ice stuff and the impending move to Salt Lake City, but on the ice, the Coyotes have once again finished at the bottom of the Western Conference. What is it that continues to plague this franchise, and are there any brighter days on the horizon in Salt Lake City? For the third straight year, Andre Turkney's Coyotes will finish below 500 and 7th or 8th in their division. However, for the third straight year, his point percentage has gone up, so he's at least inching towards 500. However, when it comes to running things behind the bench, Turkney leaves a lot to be desired. The Arizona Coyotes are top 3, or should I say bottom 3, in penalties taken per 60, bench minors, and major penalties taken on the year. They were below average, but not awful when it comes to preserving their own leads and coming back from deficits. And they're actually not awful in the first and second period of games. They do wilt in the third, but overall it seems like Turkney does a good job of getting his players up for games and keeping them in the driver's seat when they get out to leads. And overall, I think he does a pretty good job when it comes to his line deployments, even though he didn't have much to work with, especially on the back end. In short, I think Turkney's a pretty decent coach when it comes to a lot of the things that matter, although the discipline is a big point of concern, but I don't know if his performance 3 years in has warranted that 3-year extension he got.
Listen up, fives. A 10 is speaking.
The Arizona Coyotes don't have a star player, but they have some players who have shown a lot of growth this year, number one being Clayton Keller. He's firmly established himself as a top-line player and a point-a-game guy. Logan Cooley also impressed in his first year with 45 points in the season, and Dylan Guenther in his second season managed to put up 33 goals in 44 games, which was an uptick from his pace last year. While the Coyotes may be a bit thin on defense now, they do have some building blocks up front that they can feel good about next year, and they have performed as advertised in 2023-24. Man, poor Connor Ingram, that dude was balling out at the beginning of the year, holding down the fort for the Coyotes, and in the back half of the season, he just couldn't keep it going any longer. A .906 save percentage and GAA just under 3 doesn't seem that impressive for the Coyotes starting netminder, but keep in mind he also had a .175 goals saved above expected per 60, which was top 25 in the NHL. He was getting bombarded by high-quality chances, and he did everything in his power to keep the Coyotes in games, especially early on in the season. The only problem is that they couldn't really rely on him. He only played in 50 games, and Carl Vajokuma was not very good. In fact, Ingram was almost at 500, while Vajokuma was 6 games under, so that's a big reason why the Coyotes weren't as competitive. I think there's no question Ingram's going to continue to start next year, and he'll probably continue his ascension to be one of the better goaltenders in the NHL. Coyotes were actually the 6th healthiest team of the year according to NHL Injury Viz, and didn't lose any of their major contributors for lengthy periods of time. They lost Barrett Hayton for about 50 games this year, but other than that, the Yotes were remarkably healthy, especially among their youngsters.
You think you're so damn special? I don't think I'm special. My mother always said I'm not special.
Shocker of all shockers, the Coyotes' power play was actually pretty decent, 15th in the NHL, with an almost 22% success rate. Their PK, however, much more pedestrian, just over 76% effective, good for 26th in the NHL.
Hell, I'm in. High five, dude.
Coyotes were actually a pretty decent team at 5v5 with a 48.57 expected goals for and a negative 9.51 expected goal differential. Their 48.66 Corsi for at even strength was 22nd in the league, and their shooting was pretty good, so they had about 9 goals above expected at 5-on-5.
Don't make me fire you.
You can't fire me. You're acting manager, not office manager, so you have no firing powers.
I'll be honest, I have not been impressed by Bill Armstrong's work as GM of the Arizona Coyotes. He's been at the job since 2020, and in that time, the Coyotes have been known for underwhelming prospect development and signing middling free agents to bloated contracts. This year, he made a couple more of those signings to guys like Jason Zucker and Matt Dumba, but luckily he was able to sell them off at the deadline for pennies on the dollar. The Coyotes are ultimately a team that simply lacks talent and high-impact players, in part because they just have had terrible luck in the draft lottery, and also just due to their own incompetence.
This guy sucks.
The Coyotes were projected to be at the bottom of the Western Conference, so it's not all that surprising that they ended up here. The thing that's puzzling about the Coyotes is that they're not terrible at anything. They're at least passable on special teams, at 5-on-5, in goal, in their forward lines, though the defense leaves something to be desired. They have, in my opinion, a pretty decent coach, and they had pretty good injury luck. Yet the Coyotes just seem capped out at 70 to 80 points every year. They do have a good prospect pool, but ultimately this team just feels like it's spinning its tires for another year. And then this season ends on the bitterest of all notes, the news that the Arizona Coyotes would be moving to Salt Lake City. Losing a team is one of the worst experiences a fan can go through, and I feel terrible for all the hockey fans down in Arizona. This is a market that could thrive, but was thwarted by terrible ownership again and again and again. The NHL also deserves culpability for this. Gary Bettman has done a terrible job of shepherding in good ownership, while also recognizing that the financials just weren't viable to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. This is a move that both comes too soon and too late, and at the end of the day, Coyotes owner Alex Morello going to make a pretty bank off of this. The NHL will make its money back as part of the sale, but the ones left holding the bag are the players and staff members who either lose their jobs or have to relocate, and the fans who have lost their team. It's always the little guys who end up paying the price when billionaires fuck up, and that is the case here as the sad story of the Arizona Coyotes finally comes to an end. Good night, sweet prince.